So here's my problem with foosball, right? It's not a 1v1 game because you have to like switch hands, you know? And that's just like not really fun. So here's what I want to do then. On a normal regulation foosball table, you have 8 pulls. I feel like 8 is too much, so I just want to condense it down to 4 pulls, and that way you're not switching pulls, and your hands are always on either the attacking or the defense. I find that the worst position in foosball is the goalkeeper, because like you can't really do much with him. I don't know, maybe it's just because I suck at goalkeeping, but like that ball's going and it's just pretty much luck. I really want to make a foosball table that is like impossible to score on. Like what if we had it to where you just had no chance of scoring a goal? Whatever you do, it just wouldn't go in. So to do this, I want to add a separate goalkeeper. And this goalkeeper is going to have 2 functions. The first function is for it to move automatically back and forth. The second function is I want it to be able to track the ball. So it knows where the ball is, and then it'll move the goalkeeper accordingly. So conceptually, how might this work? Right? Because we want to track the ball, and we want to move our goalkeeper to that position wherever the ball is. So for this build, there are 2 main things that I'm going to use to help me out with this. The first is called a servo, and the second is called an ultrasonic rangefinder. Now what I can do with the servo is I can give it an angle. Say I want it to move 60 degrees. So I'll use a program to tell it to turn its head 60 degrees. So then what we can do with the servo is we can attach some components to it. And these components are free to turn around the ends of them. And if we put the last component in between 2 guide blocks, then we can turn the servo's circular motion into a sliding back and forth movement. And once we've done that, we can just attach our goalkeeper to the end of the slider, and then voila. Now the ultrasonic rangefinder is a little more complex. What it does is it spits out a signal, and that signal travels until it hits some sort of object. Now once it hits that object, it will actually turn around and move back to the rangefinder. Then we can write an equation and do a little bit of math and figure out the distance that the object is away from the rangefinder. Then once we have the distance, we can do a little more math and we can find the angle that we need to turn the servo in order to place our goalkeeper where the ball is. Alright, so now it's time to actually build the thing. So, QB roll. After watching these clips back, I think I should go over them. So I did a lot of planning before I started building, because I knew that if I dimensioned everything out and I planned everything accordingly, it would just make it that much easier when I started to build. And I also knew that if I knew everything, I could then just laser cut most of my pieces, and it'd be so much quicker than having to try and cut everything out. So once I had everything laid out and everything dimensioned, I just hopped into Illustrator and designed some basic pieces that I wanted to be like the field and the sides of the table. And then I just had the laser cutter cut those pieces out, which is extremely satisfying. Like, just look at the way it cuts. So good. When I was at the store, I came across these copper tubing pieces, and they were super cheap, and I thought they'd be great for just the handles and the bars to put the players on. One thing to note when building is always account for material thickness. It's so easy to miss, and it's a pain in the butt to try and sand and fix everything. There wasn't too much more to building the table, just kind of attaching everything. Here you can see that the table is, for the most part, completed. I just have to give it a paint job and then work on... Oh, and look at that, it's just done. But there's still more I definitely had to do before this. So here's a working prototype of the mechanism that will move the goalkeeper. And I have the Arduino hooked up to the ultrasonic rangefinder as well as a servo. And so, as you can see, the goalkeeper will move respectively to the amount of distance that my hand is away from it. I made this just using foam board and some wood, and so this is just a Hello World version, just so that I know things are working properly. I also hooked up a button right here, and when I press the button, it moves to the automatic function, just like so. Now I'm not going to dive too deep into the code because I know that's kind of the most boring part. But for those who are interested, here's the code. It's really not too bad. There's just a couple functions in here that help control the servo and the rangefinder. Here we just have a finite state machine that is going to switch the mode from automatic to tracking the ball. But yeah, for the most part, that's the coding. So if you're interested, let me know, but otherwise we can move on.
Okay, so here's what we got. It's for the most part completed. We don't have the handles on, and I'm gonna add an extra min to each of these. But we've got our electronic goalkeepers here. We've got the table basically completed. Our electronic components are underneath. Let's see, we've got, if you can see, we've got our ultrasonic rangefinders right down there at the 3 locations where the ball would be. So yeah, let's test it out. Okay, so right now I have it on the automatic function, so the goalkeepers are just moving back and forth automatically.
So we're already starting to see some problems arise here. The rangefinder is a cheap component, and so the further away you get, the less effective it is. But we also have a problem with the ball, and it reading something at a high speed. It just can't tell you the distance of something moving at a pretty constant speed. And this is where we start to see that there's a difference between theory and practice. In theory, the logic in our components and everything works well and works how it should. But in practice, we see that that's not the case. So this is just prototype 1. And I guess I'll have to go back to the drawing board and figure some things out for next time and make a couple changes because I think it's still rough. Make sure you let me know what you think in the comments below, and then subscribe and do all that stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching.